Before we start this video, we have to step inside the time machine and go back to the end of summer of 2022. Hi, I'm Eric, and this is my Land Rover Defender Expedition Camper. Not so long ago, I set off to discover the world and ended up in Iraq, where I spent 4 months in lockdown due to the pandemic, after which I returned home. And now, after months of waiting, it's time to restart the world trip. But first, I have to prepare the car for a journey of a lifetime. So welcome to Have Fun and Go. I wasn't quite sure if I should make this video because so far everything is about the interior build, but because a front axle is a pretty essential part of getting this thing out of the garage, here we are. Now, we're going to start off pretty easy, and that's by merging this thing together with this thing, the wheel hub and the brake disc. So this Loctite stuff, it's essentially glue for screws. Install a musical instrument. Yeah. So, this is a bearing race. You knock this down inside the wheel hub. It sits there firmly, it doesn't move, and it's a perfect home for the wheel bearing. So, this goes over there, spins around freely, which makes the wheels go round and round, and that's really awesome if you want to go on a world trip. Now this is a set. They come in a little box, and these are best buddies. They're not interchangeable, so do not put another bearing from another box inside this bearing race. Because you need 2 bearing sets for each wheel, so 4 in total, I first mark the wheels and the boxes, avoiding any mix-up. Now I'm gonna take out the bearing race. There we go. Put it over there. And the bearing itself goes back into the box. I'll pack these bearings with grease right before installing the wheel hub. Alright, because the bearing race is now at the same height as the wheel hub, I'm going to use an old one. I'm gonna put it on top, like so, and I can hammer it down even further. Now, at a certain point you can't use the old bearing race anymore, otherwise the thing gets stuck inside the wheel hub with the new race. You don't want that, so I got the other old bearing race, made a little cut right over here, so this thing never gets stuck inside the wheel hub. So now you just stack both old bearing races, and now I can use the big old hammer. When using a hammer, once the bearing race is in, the sound changes from a hollow sound to a metal sound. So, hollow sound, metal sound. Once you hear that, you're done. So, stop. Hammer time. For now, I'm going to store these and move on to the next project, which is applying some Smurf poo onto the axle, then a paper gasket, and some more Smurf poo on the diff, then squashing it together. I call this the overkill method. And the fun continues with the stub axle. To wrap it up, a needle bearing roller. Now, this thing is as delicate as a snowflake in a hot tub, so I'm slowly pressing it down. And now it's ready to spin like a madman. Okay, this stub axle is ready. Next up, the swivel ball. This is attached to the end of the axle and it holds the swivel pin housing, but more on that in a second. And there it is, the swivel pin housing. So far it was easy peasy, but here comes the tricky part. To avoid massive steering problems, I need a specific preload on the bearing of the swivel pin housing. In other words, the swivel pin housing should only turn after applying a specific amount of resistance, which is between 1.16 to 1.46 kilograms, and yes, that is pretty specific. For this, I use a digital luggage scale. So, pull it, and if the housing turns after the scale reads between 1.16 and 1.46 kilograms, I've earned a cold beer. I use these metal plates called shims that come in various thicknesses, which you slide over the upper swivel pin. If everything is too loose, remove a shim. If it's too tight, add a shim. And after a few tries, 1.31 kilograms earned me a cold beer. Last step is installing a seal so all the grease, which I will add later on, stays inside the swivel housing. And now, finally I can install the axle underneath the Defender. Yeah, well, not quite yet, because there's more. To complete the story, and I'll keep this short, I also replaced the fuel pump that made a whining noise since I drove back from North Iraq. I also cleaned the fuel filter housing, the connectors. This picture needs no explanation of why that was necessary, and the fuel hoses. After which I could reinstall the fuel tank. I also changed the leaky transfer box output flange oil seal in the front. After that, the handbrake. So these are the old handbrake parts, especially the brake shoe is foobar. So I bought new brake shoes and also a brand new spring kit. Installing these springs for the handbrake shoe is a lot of fun if you like spending 1 hour on a freezing concrete floor, because here's the problem. You have this little pin with a T at the end which slides over the backplate and the handbrake shoe. Now just for demonstration, my fingers are the backplate and the handbrake shoe. Then you slide a spring over the pin like so. And then you have this little lock plate that also has a T, as you can see, which slides through the pin. And then when you did that, hold on, when you did that, you turn the lock plate, which keeps the, hold on, you see, it already goes wrong like so. Like so, and now the spring holds the brake shoe in place. The only problem is that you have to compress this spring with force while Mr. Pin moves in every direction. So if you fail to slide the lock plate over the pin, the spring will launch itself to the moon, and then I have to search for it again. And again, and again, and again. And yes, there is a special tool for that, which I don't have, so I'm just using regular pliers. But in the end, I fixed it, and that's all that matters. Yeah. And that's it. Oh no, wait. One morning, I noticed there was oil underneath the right front wheel, which is kind of weird. I traced the oil up the steering rod, further upwards, and it turned out to be the power-assisted steering pump. Now, it had been freezing for 2 weeks, so I guess that did it, and something ruptured inside the pump, spilling oil everywhere. Now, as you can see, I tried to fix it, which was a waste of time, so I just replaced it. In other words, thank you for your service for 23 years. So, after installing the new pump, it is time to put everything back together and bleed the power steering. And now, after a rebuild that seemed to last forever, the car emerges from its long hibernation as a born-again road warrior. It's like a zombie rising from the dead, except instead of brains, it's hungry for diesel and adventures. Thank you for watching. See you next week.